I think that one of the most troublesome things for creative people to deal with is the idea of inspiration. Who feels like working, right? It's one of those things that, uh, you know, no matter what job you love, there are going to be times that you don't love it. You have to start devising techniques for sort of tricking yourself into creative work when you're not feeling creative, or into, you know, committing to your hobby and putting time into it even when you don't feel like it, because nobody feels like it all the time. Waiting for or finding inspiration, it's a little bit of a creative lazy trap that we get ourselves into, where we think, the thing I need to do is probably watch a couple of movies, probably some other people's actual plays. That would get me inspired. When in real life gets so busy, how do you stay motivated to do projects for D&D? So there have only been really two phases of my time with D&D, and I'll talk about both of them because I think they could both be relevant. The first one was really before I started posting anything online. So really like the first 4 or 5 years that I was doing D&D stuff. I was running my 2 games, I was crafting and making puzzles and kind of just painting miniatures and doing all of that stuff. And at the time, just due to the work and other stuff going on in life, it's also during COVID. It was like my creative outlet. It was like the only thing pretty much at that time that I had basically full creative control over. It was sort of my escape, and the way of dealing with some, mundane career stuff at the time. I was like, hey, that's all fine. I hate all that, but I love all of this. I'm just going to sink into this and uh, you know, get out all of this kind of pent up creative energy. So that was really good. That was the why then. That's why I could go for hours basically, um, because I was sort of that was my sort of release valve. Uh, and I was also learning it. There was a lot to learn. There's still a lot to learn, but I was sort of figuring out a lot of things as I went, experimenting a lot. That was still at a time when I would be really frustrated to not have a game run for a week and stuff like that. So that was sort of that's sort of the first chunk. Then the sort of the second chunk. The answer is a little bit different for me once I started kind of sharing stuff online and certainly streaming. But even before streaming, I was putting up videos and stuff like that. Obviously, it's taking on a new direction for me because I'm trying to sort of make something, as sort of a secondary result. Like, hey, I really love D&D, but now I'm gonna make content, make products, and try to do more. So now, it is still a creative outlet for me, but now it's sort of pivoted into, a second job, and which I'm okay with, by the way. I would love it to be my first and only job. But I say second job for the most part because it's how much time I put into it. I'm treating it that way, right? I'm investing a lot of time and energy into all of this to grow it. And that can be really tough because I've already got one job, I have a family, and I run games privately, socially. Obviously, I don't put those online. So it's sort of on top of all of that, I'm trying to maintain growing this. And so my answer now, like how do I do all this when um I think that one of the most troublesome things for creative people to deal with is the idea of inspiration. Because uh because it's amazing when you have it, and then you can get stuck thinking that like you need to have it, or you need to wait for it, or you need to be driven by it. And the reality is most creative work, I think, doesn't have any sort of inspiration attached to it. I think that it's a luxury, it's a fun thing. It's one of the byproducts of doing work that inspires you, that you get excited about, that you love, is that sometimes that does line up with inspiration. You can, you know, 10, 20, 30x your work in that time. And that's awesome. But if you want to be a creative person professionally, you have to manufacture creative output, even when you don't feel like it. And so a little bit that's something that I've believed for a long time professionally and in other stuff that I've done, and I'm kind of taking that now to D&D, and that's not to say that I don't enjoy the stuff, but it means that when I'm sitting here going like I don't really feel like working on this stuff, it's like, well, sure. Who feels like working, right? It's one of those things that uh you know, no matter what job you love, there are going to be times that you don't love it. And it's almost like you hear stories from all sorts of writers, right? Where it's like, no matter what, my baseline is I put out 2 pages or, 1,000 words or 300 words or whatever it is. Like you just sit down and you do it. Um, and so to some extent, how much practice do you want to get? And obviously that takes balance. I'm probably a bad person to take inspiration from on this front because, I will regularly kind of skew my life out of balance because I just love working on this stuff as much as I can. The one example I would point to, I have a video on brainstorming. And it's a particularly sort of dry, sort of methodological process for drawing out new ideas. And it's not really pertinent to what we're talking about, except in the fact that you have to start devising techniques for sort of tricking yourself into creative work when you're not feeling creative, or into, committing to your hobby and putting time into it, even when you don't feel like it, because nobody feels like it all the time. So even if I don't have ideas, I can use, a brainstorming methodology to sort of pull those ideas out, just sort of lay them out on the table. And sometimes if I don't feel like, doing what I need to do, I say, okay, well, I'm going to organize my campaign notes. Those are always running out of date. Or I'm going to clean my space and like reorganize my miniatures or my shelves or something like that. Like that always needs to be done. Or I can move some video files around and fix some storage. A little bit, it's like various ways of tricking yourself into putting in a couple of minutes, because once you're a couple of minutes in, it's almost like your brain and everything can sort of get tricked into like, oh yeah, I'm in this mode now, and then you're off. Honestly, the semi-daily encounter streams have really helped me to begin to think about the brainstorming capability that tables can provide to sort of the game design process. I've never, ever, ever rolled on tables for ideas before. And I think that's because I wasn't creating the tables. And now that I am, I'm beginning to really like the process a lot. And I'm making more tables. So that's good. And to some extent, it's a practice that it's an endeavor we're all into. If you find tricks of the trade, things that you do to help motivate you to do more, share them. And there's nothing wrong with seeking inspiration, but notice how little time I gave to the idea of waiting for or finding inspiration. It's a little bit of a creative, lazy trap that we get ourselves into, where we think, the thing I need to do is probably watch a couple of movies, probably some other people's actual plays. That would get me inspired. Maybe if I could do some reading, could do some stuff. All of those things can be good. We just have to, I think, balance out creative output with things that kind of regenerate us, because if that gets too out of balance, then at a certain point, it's sort of like if I spend the next 3 years world building and I never run a game, am I a dungeon master or am I a world designer? Am I writing a book? if what you want to do is you want to make stuff, try to make that the majority of what you do with your time. And Elder, capping it off just perfectly. Inspiration is a step at a time. Just like stairs. The one time I don't have stairs at arm's reach, he got me. Joke's on me. Coffee always helps. Coffee's a big help.